Caribbean Fisheries Institute. Now notice Gulf and Caribbean. So I guess she's somewhere between the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea. We'll see. I don't know. I'm going to ask her. So Emma Doyle, how are you?
Very good. Thank you, Claire. It's good to be talking to you.
Yeah, so tell me, what is it exactly you do at the Gulf and Caribbean Fisheries Institute?
So we're an organisation that works with all of the nations of the Caribbean Sea. So in terms of your tour around the Caribbean, we're actually encompassing all of the nations, stretching from Bermuda, or the nations and territories, from Bermuda way up in the north, down as far as the Guyanas, through the Caribbean islands of the Eastern Caribbean, across to Mesoamerican Reef region of Mexico, Belize, Honduras, Central America, Colombia, Venezuela. So our organisation is a big grand tour for you.
Wow. So I think it's called the Caribbean Large Marine Ecosystem, right?
That's very good. Yes, that's correct.
Yay! Fight for me. Okay, go ahead.
That's correct. And it's a really important thing that we think of it as a large marine ecosystem, because the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean, they're ecologically connected areas.
Yeah, because there's no border. There's no border, right?
Exactly. There's no borders that the fish know. The little baby corals, they don't know where the borders are of different seas or of different countries. The sea turtles swimming around in the sea and the whales, all our protected species, they don't work with borders. And in my work, we partner with the United Nations Environment Programme, with the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the American organization that does all the hurricane forecasting and the weather. Yeah. They also work on coral reef conservation. And we work with as many of the countries as we can in the Caribbean region to help everybody to share what they're doing and to apply the best practices and the best science.
So you're really working in a transsectoral space, because one of the things I have found working in international development, that people tend to be very siloed. I'm a fish person, I'm a coral reef person, I'm a sponge person, I'm a turtle person. But your work, it spans different sectors. Are you saying?
It does. It really does. And in fact, my background is as a geographer, but I work with a lot of marine biologists. I work with some very good educators. I work with people like Coast Guard and police officers. So it's very broad.
Police officers.
That's right. I can tell you all about that.
Yes, please. Why are you working with police officers?
Well, so most of my work is focused on protecting special areas of the sea. Special places. It can be in the sea, it can be on the coast. We work with what are known as marine protected areas.
Okay.
Now, that's basically a marine national park. Just like you might have a national park in your mountains, well, we also have national parks that are specially protected areas in the sea. And in fact, UNEP has a great group of people working at the Specially Protected Areas and Wildlife Protocol Office in Guadeloupe. And we work very closely with them to help establish and help to manage effectively these special places where we really want to protect and provide somewhere for the fish to live and grow and reproduce. And we want to provide healthy habitat so that the fish have somewhere to live and grow, and mangroves that are very important for baby fish, for seabirds. And we want to try...
I was going to say that I like to hear the part about the fish living and growing and reproducing, because I love fish. I love to eat fish. That's my extent of marine knowledge. Anyway,
I think we all have it. Well, that's the thing. We all have an important stake in the health of the ocean.
Exactly.
Whether you earn your livelihood from fisheries, whether you like to eat fish, or whether you work in tourism where you might have people coming to see and enjoy diving with fish, they're really essential in the Caribbean economy. So when you have a special place that's set aside to help protect the fish and help them grow and reproduce, well, that means you have a special area where sometimes you might have special regulations. Now, as soon as you have regulations, that means you may be allowing people to do some things in some places, and then you might have other places where you're not allowing people to do everything they might like to. So the work in terms of policing, that comes with helping to ensure that the laws that seek to protect these special national parks in the sea, that those are respected, that those laws are respected, that they're effectively enforced and complied with by us all.
So these marine protected areas could cover fish or coral reefs or conch grounds or lobster
Yes,
grounds, anything. What,
exactly. Yes.
what about shark grounds?
Now, so then we talk about some of these really highly migratory protected species like sea turtles,
Yes,
like sharks, like whales and dolphins that move a lot. They
yes,
need, they need really big marine protected areas,
yes,
or what they need is for, in the case, for example, of turtles, you can think about there are special places that turtles go to nest to lay their eggs, and we want to
yes,
make sure they're protected there. And then there's other places where they go to forage and feed and special seagrass areas or reefs that they need protected for food.
yes,
So we actually try to work as a network of
yes,
protected areas. And we
yes.
try to ensure that, say, the places where the sea turtles are nesting are just as well protected as the places where they go to feed.
Got you. So the
So,
whole value chain or the whole life cycle chain. So in other words, if there are fish that journey from point A to point B, you
yes,
try to have, let's say, safe havens along that route. Let's call it that, to
kind
make
of.
sure that they can survive to enough so they can reproduce.
That's the case with some species, yes. Now, with other species, that's really hard to do because they have such very big areas that it would require large protected areas. And mostly in the Caribbean, the protected areas are really very small.
Okay.
There are there are other areas in the Pacific Ocean and in the Indian Ocean where there are larger areas set aside. But we're doing what we can, and there's a couple of countries that are doing a good job in protecting sharks, like the Bahamas,
Yes.
the British Virgin Islands, and Honduras among them,
Oh,
who are really serving as shark sanctuaries. So don't go and try and eat any shark in those places.
so so I guess sharks are important in ecosystem. Then you're saying.
Essential. The whole of the food chain is really important. And now, sometimes I don't know if you've noticed that sometimes the fish that you can buy seem to be getting smaller.
Definitely smaller and more expensive. It's not a happy feeling, trust me.
And when the fish are getting smaller and when they're getting more expensive, that shows that they're harder to find. Now, that can be a sign of a particular species might be getting overfished. When it's particularly hard, or one that becomes more expensive, can be a sign that it's overfished and it's just harder to find and that there aren't the same big fish around. When they're getting smaller, similarly, it shows that the big fish aren't there and therefore we have to catch the smaller ones. And that's bad for the overall ecosystem.
So in terms of sort of where we need to go, because one of the reasons why we at ICS started with this and sort of my dream is that I remember growing up as a child, I didn't learn anything about the sea, even though I lived like I could walk to the sea in like 5 minutes from my house. And so it was just a place that was there. And I think many Caribbean people have the same experience. And from all my readings, I'm realizing that the sea actually is in dire straits. And if we don't pay attention, we're going to have probably a dead sea in 30 years. So we really have to like pay attention. So in terms of marine protected areas, do you think we have enough or should there be more marine protected areas in the Caribbean region?
Yeah, in the it's very important to establish areas for protection, and we know that the coverage in the Caribbean is lower than the targets that some of the international organisations and some of the international conventions of which our nations are part are promoting greater levels of protection than we currently have, for sure. There's an effort underway at the moment to ensure that we have 20% of the coast and of the nearshore marine seas protected by 2020.
Okay.
Some places are starting to achieve that, but overall, no. The coverage is more in some places. It's more like 1 or 2% instead
Wow.
of 20%. So it's a lot lower than recommended.
So we have a
But
lot of
it's
work to do then.
That's right. But it's not just a matter of establishing an area and calling it a protected area. It also has to be managed effectively. We have to ensure that where we protect is the right area, and then we have to make sure that everybody knows what the rules are that apply in that area and that there's respect for those rules, and that we then try to build livelihoods around those areas so that we're not just taking away an opportunity to fish, but we're working towards a more sustainable future overall.
Well, that is the most important thing you just said, because why should I respect your rules if the rules are going to mean I don't have food or I don't have a job? And we don't understand it. As I said, again, I went to high school in Jamaica, went to 1 year of university in Jamaica, and I didn't learn one thing about the sea in all my high school. And I've been asking around, and I don't think that's really changed that much
So
significantly.
it is changing in some places. Fortunately, we've got some really good marine protected areas that have some really great staff and some really good programs that they're working on. Now, these these managers of these areas, they have a lot of jobs to do. They're not just a marine biologist, but they're the policeman, or they're the teacher, they're the accountant. They tend to do, they're the communications officer talking to the media. They do everything. But in some places, we've got some really great education programs evolving. Now, there's a real opportunity to get more, unlike yourself, to get more of the kids in the Caribbean out swimming and snorkeling and
Yes,
enjoying their environment, enjoying their recreation,
yes,
being able to swim, and
yes,
appreciating what's in the
yes,
ocean and
yes.
understanding what it is that we need to protect. It's through understanding and knowing things that you get to really understand the importance of protection. So we have, yeah, we have some really good work going on. I recently hosted a workshop where we had a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old from Bonaire who came to talk to a group of about 30 marine park managers to
Yes.
tell them about how great it's been for them to get involved in programs to protect the ocean, programs especially for kids.
So you are based in the Dutch Caribbean yourself? Where
I,
exactly are you?
well, I
Or are you all over?
I'm kind of all over. At the moment, okay, we have 38 countries and territories, depending on how you define it, but about 40 countries and territories in the Caribbean region.
Hmm.
My work is at the moment focused on 10 of those countries and territories.
Yes.
It's like anything, there's scarce resources and there's never enough funding to go around. So we're focusing on 10 places at the moment. And I've got a group of about 30 marine protected areas who I'm working with really closely.
Yes.
And that includes, yes, that includes two of the Dutch territories. It
Yes.
also includes the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos. It
Wow.
includes St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Grenada, where there's a really nice transboundary network of protected areas that works really well together. And
Wow.
then it also includes the British Virgin Islands. It includes Mexico, Belize, Honduras. So I'm focused on those areas. And the support that we're getting from organisations like UNEP or NOAA is really, really very valuable to help those managers to develop really good education programs based on the knowledge of those who've done it before. A little bit like Bonaire. We've shared some really nice experience from these Bonaire kids with the other managers.
Yeah, we'd love to really at some point to find out more about those kids, because again, getting the youth on board early is critical to our shared future being a thriving one, isn't it?
That's right, it is. And their appreciation for the oceans is key, and also thinking about their sustainable livelihoods for the future.
Definitely.
It's certainly opened up jobs for kids in Bonaire, kids in Belize, and other countries who've gone into work in this field.
So last question, in terms of sustainable livelihoods, are you doing what? Fisheries? Are you doing any fish farming in the sea, oyster farming, lobster farming, conch farming? What kind of things are you doing in sustainable livelihoods?
So the main focus is ensuring that we protect the areas and the habitat that are really important for example, for fish, upon which livelihoods and national economies and your Friday night dinner might depend.
Yeah,
Um, we're trying to protect those areas so that then in those special areas the fish can reproduce, and fish generally are territorial. As their numbers increase they move out, and so they spread, and that makes the fishing outside the protected area even better.
got you.
And
Got
we're also working with helping those national park managers to work with local communities to introduce and promote other more sustainable livelihood options that can take some of the pressure off the fisheries, so that we aren't just fishing all the time for smaller and smaller fish. And that includes things like getting the kids of fishermen involved in establishing new businesses, technology businesses, or
Wow.
also tourism businesses in Belize, for example. It includes livelihoods work in encouraging kids of fishers or fishers themselves to get involved in tour guiding for fly fishermen, dive masters, different things like that.
Wow, this is very exciting. I could get lost in this because I'm really interested in the sustainable livelihoods agenda.
So
Our NGO in Washington is very interested in that, and we want to work in this area.
it
So
is.
on that, so we have run out of time, and so we have to say goodbye.
All right, Claire.
So
Thanks
thank
very
you
much. It was
so
good.
much for having taking your time and sharing your wisdom with us.
Okay, bye.
Bye. And so, folks, again, we were talking to Emma Doyle at the Gulf and Caribbean Fisheries Institute. Emma, before you go, one last thing. Tell me why your life needs the Caribbean Sea.
Tell me why what?
Your life needs the Caribbean Sea.
Why my life needs the Caribbean Sea?
Yes.
Because we depend on the ocean for so much. More of our planet is ocean than it is land. Although I live on land, I like to spend time in the ocean, and I like to enjoy the resources that come from the ocean.
Thank you. Well, with that, we're moving on. Walk good.